Imagine declaring war and losing as soon as you blink. This would be true for the Anglo-Zanzibar War, a war that only lasted 38 minutes. The year's 1896. Tensions are high and egos are even higher. And a man by the name of Khalid bin Bargash would choose to fight the British Navy with his high-quality artillery piece. In this video, we're going to be diving into the shortest war that was ever recorded in history. This conflict was so abrupt that if you decided to take a nap during it, you would have completely missed it all. So buckle up while we reveal the history of the Anglo-Zanzibar War. So to understand why this all took place, we have to take 10 steps back. From 1806 to 1856, the island of Ungunya, yet formerly recognized as Zanzibar, was run by a man who wasn't even in the country. His name was Said bin Sultan, and he lived and ruled in Oman while also being in control of Zanzibar Island. Although in 1840 he would finally move to Zanzibar, moving to the capital, Zanzibar City, and he would turn it into a major trading hub. This would be until his son Maid bin Said would take power in 1856, being the first official sultan or ruler of Zanzibar, finally establishing a sovereign nation, further expanding into trades which were mainly slave trades. It's also around this time where Britain saw another sovereign nation come into play, and Britain did what Britain does best. They took over, yet they did it very slowly and in a way that didn't look like they were colonizing it. They took baby steps this time around. They would first start off by recognizing Zanzibar as a sovereign nation, so as to get on their good side so things don't get ugly. It's also important to note that Britain was also worried about Germany trying to take over the island too. This is because by the time the second official sultan of Zanzibar, Bargash bin Said, came into power in 1870, he had granted the rights of the territory that he had in Kenya to Britain and his territory in Tanzania to the Germans. And now with two European powers being so close together, they both had their eyes on the island, and Britain was really scared now. And after the third sultan, Khalif bin Said, would take power in 1888, he would in his term completely abolish the slave trade, complying with the British orders because Britain had now saw slavery as bad and inhumane. They believed that ripping families apart was a huge human rights violation. Anyways, with the year now being 1890, this is when stuff starts to get interesting. The former sultan of Zanzibar had passed away, with the new ruler being Ali bin Said, and that is the same year that the British government had claimed Zanzibar as a British protectorate. No voting from the people, no say from anybody else. They just straight up said, we own you now, with Ali being seen as a British puppet. Going back to what I said earlier with the British not taking over completely and colonizing, they would use him as a face, just to give the people a little bit of hope that they really had sovereignty and they really had a say in what they really did, when in actuality, this guy was just a marionette for the British and he did whatever they told him to do. But the good thing about this, with this new rule came the complete ban of slavery. I mean, before it was just a slave trade. Now slavery is completely banned in Zanzibar. This right here is when rebels would start to form up in the country. And this would all end with our final sultan of Zanzibar in the 1800s. After Ali had passed away, a new pro-British puppet would take place in 1893 by the name of Hamad bin Tuani. And everything would go amazing for the next 3 years of his rule until his sudden death. It was heavily assumed that his nephew Khalid bin Bargash had poisoned him because hours after he died, he moved into the palace. Not only that, but he would assume leadership. See, this is what the British did not like. This is what the British did not want. They had now lost control of the country. Not only that, but Khalid was technically violating the British protectorate, because the protectorate pretty much stated that any leader that y'all have, the British government has to like. You obviously know why, so they can marionette the country and pretty much puppet it. And with no approval or acceptance of this new leadership, the British government would give Khalid an ultimatum on August 26th of 1896. Step down by tomorrow at 9 a.m. or face military consequence. And of course he didn't go the easy route because he was dumb. In actuality, he just wanted to win this all so he could bring back slavery. And instead of surrendering, he would barricade himself and 3,000 of his loyal followers in the palace. Not only that, he would arm all of his followers inside and out with artillery pieces or guns. In actuality, these artillery or guns were just old weapons that Britain had just gave them, and if they're old, they're definitely not going to be any good. So you could pretty much just call these weapons pea shooters to the British government. But hey, you gotta applaud the effort, right? However, before the 26th, some British warships had already parked within the harbor, and by the time the sun came up the next day, 3 cruisers and 2 gunboats would be parked directly next to the palace. The wooden palace that Khalid had barricaded himself in. It is now the 27th, the next day at 8 a.m. and the British know he's not going to surrender. With the island completely being evacuated of British presence, the British consul aboard one of the warships would send a message back to the mainland, pretty much confirming that, hey, if this demolition takes place, we're going to be A-okay. And the British government would soon reply, pretty much saying, whatever force you think is necessary, we're going to back you 100%. There's the green light. It's also around this time where Khalid would finally break silence with a warship, ignorantly enough, sending a message to the British saying, we have no intention of hauling down our flag, and we do not believe that you will open fire on us. I'm gonna paraphrase this, but the British pretty much said, if you're a good boy, we won't. This just seems just like a giant game of cat and mouse, but you can imagine the British didn't really like that response, because 2 minutes after 9 o'clock, the bombardment would begin. All of the warships would open fire on the wooden palace with explosive shells, completely turning half of it into rubble within seconds. Not only that, but those artillery pieces, which were pretty much outdated field cannons, were automatically destroyed within the first couple of shots. They would also take out a makeshift warship that Khalid's men would have made, and for some reason, the warship that they had made would park pretty much directly in front of the line of fire of all of the warships. I don't think I have to tell you what happened to that ship. You can just assume. 4 shots later, the ship was a submarine. And this would go on for quite some time. The bombardment would continue, the building would collapse. I mean, to the British, this was barely a war. This was pretty much just target practice. This was just a fun day out on the rain. And by 9:40, the bombardment would completely stop, with the palace being in complete ruin, with the death/injury toll on the Zanzibar side being about 500. And funny enough, it was only one reported British soldier to be hurt in this conflict. Just one. Like, there were 1,000 men spread out on all of those ships. And just one got hurt. Allegedly from shrapnel from a cannon. How did no one else get hit? Like, you know, he was the butt of all jokes for the next couple of years within his service. It's like, you could never go at that guy's neck again. He tries to say something, it's like, shut up, you were the only one injured in that 38-minute war. Like, you're done. You're done. You're done. With that, the palace would be taken down to rubble. The flag would also be taken down, and the British would finally make their landing on the island. Funny enough, they would never find Khalid. Not because he was dead though. Like, no, he ran away. Like, he left the 3,000 followers that he locked in the palace, bringing his most loyal followers, and he just left the rest. Like, he ran away. It was said that he escaped to the German embassy that was close by, later being sent to German-controlled East Africa, where he was later found in World War I, then exiled to St. Helena, which is exactly where Napoleon was also exiled. Fortunately though, later in his life, the British government was feeling really generous, and they let him return back to Eastern Africa, where he would live the rest of his life until he would pass away in 1927. And that was the story of the shortest recorded war in history. A war that shouldn't have even began, realistically. A war that would show the lengths that someone would go to achieve their cowardice dream. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the 38-minute War of Zanzibar. I hope you guys enjoyed. You have a good day and a good night. Peace.